Welcome to America Decides. It's been a busy day, so let's get right to it. Pro-Palestinian protests have grown more turbulent at colleges across the country, with police arresting nearly 300 people in New York overnight and moving in to remove encampments and break up clashes with counter-protesters at colleges and universities across the country. But first, another state has joined the ranks of nearly 24 states that have imposed major abortion bans or restrictions now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned. And this state is a big one. It's Florida. And Florida's 6-week ban went into effect today, meaning it will now be nearly impossible to get an abortion anywhere in the South.
At 6-week gestation, most patients don't even realize they're pregnant. With this new abortion ban, there are an overwhelming number of scared, confused, and frustrated Floridians.
And while Florida's law goes into effect, the Arizona Senate has voted just this afternoon to repeal the 1864 near-total abortion ban that was reinstated by the Arizona Supreme Court last month. 2 Republicans crossed the aisle to join Democrats to vote for this repeal. It will now head to the Democratic governor's desk, and she says she will sign it. In both states, our Nidia Cavazos is in Jacksonville, Florida, but we're going to start tonight with Janet Shamlian in Phoenix, in the battleground state of Arizona. Janet, good to see you. You've been covering this all day. The Arizona Senate just voted to repeal the state's near-total abortion ban. Walk us through that vote and the reaction.
Hi, Nancy. It's good to be with you from Phoenix. Yeah, it was a busy day here at the Capitol. They got the votes they needed because a couple of Republican lawmakers, a couple of senators crossed the aisle and voted with the Democrats. So it was a 16-14 vote. They kind of knew that was going to happen, but the Republicans were pretty angry about it, that they had 2 of their members, what they said, defect to the other side. And it kind of delayed things for a while as they insisted on recounts and discussing why they voted as they did. But it does give this repeal now legs to send to the governor, as you said, and she said she will sign it probably tomorrow. Why this is important is because this will take the bite out of the state Supreme Court's ruling that an 1800 era's law, an abortion ban, a near total abortion ban that's supposed to go into effect at the end of June. This will supersede that, right? But it won't do so right away because that Supreme Court ruling here in Arizona will take effect June 27th. But what happened today won't take effect until 30 days after the legislature adjourns here for the season. And that right now is a TBD date, Nancy.
So there could be a gap, is what you're saying, Janet, between when the 1864 bill goes into effect and then when the bill gets repealed.
And it could be 2 or 3 months, Nancy. We just don't know. You know, are Republicans now going to try to delay the session and try to adjourn later? But it could be a period of several months.
And eventually, though, once this goes into effect, does this mean that the state reverts back to the restrictions that were put in place, a 15-week threshold back in 2022?
Absolutely. And that is what's in effect right now. Abortion is legal here in Arizona until 15 weeks' time, right? So that's what they will go back to, unless there is this ballot initiative in November that seems like it certainly has enough signatures to make it, which would be much less restrictive on when abortions would be allowed.
And, you know, that's been sort of hanging over everything, the fact that this ballot measure is going to be most likely on the ballot in Arizona in November. It would enshrine the right to an abortion in the Constitution. Does today's vote take some of the air out of that balloon?
I don't think so. Talking to voters here, as I have this week, and I've been here for a couple of weeks now, people really want to see this as a constitutional amendment, the right to abortion. As you've mentioned, this is a battleground state, right? And this issue is galvanizing voters. So there's a lot of concerns from Republicans, right, that this is going to bring Democrats out big time in November. So I don't think the air is out of it, but it feels like a reprieve for those who support abortion rights.
Wow. So it sounds like the abortion regulations in that state could change multiple times over the next 6 months. Janet, glad to hear that you are covering all of it. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Nancy.
Vice President Kamala Harris was in Jacksonville, Florida today. She was there to give a speech on reproductive freedom as part of her nationwide tour marking the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade.
As of this morning, 4 million women in this state woke up with fewer reproductive freedoms than they had last night.
The vice president's Florida visit comes the same day as the 6-week abortion ban becomes law in that state. That means almost every state in the South, take a look at this map, now has severe limits on abortion. In most of those states, it is now nearly outlawed. To talk about the impact of that, Nidia Cavazos joins us from Jacksonville, Florida, where the vice president was giving that speech today. Okay, Nidia, this law bans abortion after 6 weeks, a point at which many women don't even know they are pregnant. What kinds of penalties do women and healthcare providers in Florida now face if they do carry out an abortion after that point?
Nancy, Florida's 6-week abortion ban is now one of the most restrictive bans that we're seeing all across the U.S. And what this means for doctors and really anyone who actively supports women in getting this medical procedure is that they could be facing up to 5 years of prison time. And of course, this is because it is now considered a third-degree felony because the law is now in effect as of today.
Wow. So abortions in Florida, they'd actually gone up last year, Nidia, because women were coming in from neighboring states where it was already banned. We showed that map of the South. What are healthcare providers there in Florida telling you about what they anticipate is going to happen now?
Healthcare providers here in Florida are anticipating that they're going to have to turn away the majority of women who in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, will be approaching their clinics and seeking an abortion, as the majority of the women seeking an abortion will be past the 6-week mark. And now as women begin to look for out-of-state options, they're going to confront the reality, this new reality that most of the abortion access in the southeast part of the U.S. is severely limited. And we're talking about North Carolina and Virginia being some of the closest states to women in Florida where they can receive abortion access, as there is abortion access past the 6-week mark. But of course, this is only possible if it is financially feasible to women. And now healthcare providers here in Florida are also anticipating that with the clinics in the states that do have abortion access, these are going to be overwhelmed with so many women trying to get these abortion services, and it's going to impact the time frame in which a woman can receive an abortion.
Yeah, no question. It will be logistically and financially very complicated for women in the South who want to leave the South to get an abortion. Nidia, last month, Florida Supreme Court ruled to allow a November ballot measure on making abortion rights part of the state's constitution, very similar to what we were just discussing in Arizona. These ballot measures have been successful in other states, but Florida could be a bigger hurdle, right?
Nancy, that's correct. And that's because voters here in Florida will have the option of voting for abortion access in their ballot when they head to the voting booth in November. But the reality is that in order to be able to enshrine abortion access into the state's constitution, this ballot initiative would need to count with 60% of voter support. And realistically speaking, this is a significantly high threshold, and it's a threshold where other states have fallen short of meeting. And so this is a new reality that women in Florida are facing, that while they can vote for abortion access in November, it's a complicated situation.
Yeah, usually those ballot measures tend to get 56, 57% of the vote, but 60% is a really difficult threshold to meet. Nidia Cavazos, thanks so much for joining us.